Okay, our voices in our life. You will now see Lindsay and I. Hi, welcome to the internet. This is the first time we're doing this. Um, it's been a weird and wacky few months for the entire planet, but um, yeah, welcome along. I've got messages open just in case people want to send questions or ask things directly. Eddie's sitting in the side, so we'll invite him in and do that now. Hold on, let's do that. Yes, cool. Oh. Hopefully he's going to jump in the next few seconds. Just I should see him pop up in participants. Zoom is a new experience for me, people. I know if several of our members are using it already. Shelley,
it's pretty good
on our committee, is a big fan from the sounds of things.
Okay.
I suppose we should talk a little bit about who we are, our membership, because this is being shared out, even further and wider than what we normally get. There's people in Canada looking at us now because Eddie's been sending things out. Welcome to Western Australia. We are still alive after
everybody.
Still alive after the storms.
So, yes, all those plastic chairs blown over. It was quite terrifying. But now we're doing pretty well, and I think we're almost COVID-free in the state.
I think that plastic lawn chair meme has gone around a bit.
I think it's the standard thing most West Australians do after a big storm.
Yeah, cool. So is that...
Alrighty, well...
Oh, there we go. Admit. Let's see if we can technically get this working.
Hey!
It's Eddie. Hi.
Hi, Eddie.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
My name's Lindsay.
Sorry, my screen's a bit dark. I need to just kind of adjust this because the window's to my right. So
no, that's fine. Take a few minutes. We've when we're a little bit early than our 10:30 setup.
So you guys are the morning, right?
Sorry?
You guys are the morning.
We are. I don't have sunlight directly streaming through my window, but it's enough to make my pasty forehead turn white and my bottom half to turn dark ruddy red.
It's 10 o'clock in the morning here. And still light at 7 in Canada at the moment.
Yeah, it's slowly, transitioning from spring to summer, but it still gets a bit chilly. But it's still, we've had winter, we've had rain, so it's nice.
Cool. I'll do the introductions, get us out there into the world and explain who we all are. To the membership, because this is being shared out through your channels as well. So Griffin Academy and I'm hearing echoes of my voice.
Oh, sorry. I just had to. I switched to my speakers, and I'm going to switch back. Maybe that's better.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Hearing my own voice is like yeah.
Yeah, it's my laptop speakers, not as my external, but the external seems to give you echo. Sorry, that's not.
No,
there's nothing worse than talking and hearing yourself 1.5 seconds.
Well,
late.
Sounds like I'm auditioning for Baba Yaga in the next horror Russian film. So, okay, let's see where we're at. My name is Tanya Beeson. I'm the chair of Wenimate, the West Australian Animation Association. We've sort of been sitting on the internet waiting for the COVID crisis to pass, and Australia's doing all right in that, but a lot of the world is in lockdown at the moment, so lots of interviews and chatting back and forth across the internet, so it's pretty cool. We've been this is Lindsay Flay to you can see on my screen to the...
Yes, so I'm Lindsay Flay. I do visual effects and animation, mostly specialising in 3D. I lecture like Kenya. I lecture at TAFE, training this sort of stuff to the next excitable generation of animators and visual effects artists coming through. I guess I was more into visual effects and lighting. Started off as a stop motion animator, and watched the world turn itself inside out multiple times through my career. Really, the industry certainly. It's fairly unrecognizable now.
Cool.
Did you grow up in Perth?
I did.
By the way?
I grew up in the suburbs, so I was in deepest, darkest Greenwood, up in the northern suburbs. And for the longest of times, I thought I was the only animator in the state. That's what it felt like. There was literally nothing going around. An odd Channel 9 community thing or whatever. So I lived vicariously off of things like the Canadian Film Board animations and all that sort of stuff. That was my main influence, not Disney. When I did come across Disney enthusiasts and occasionally the odd animator, I was the only person who didn't have a walk cycle on my wall. I felt very inadequate.
Cool. We're hearing dings in the background because I'm getting a whole bunch of people going, ask him questions. And usually, like 90% of them are Spider-Man questions. So.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, look,
we'll deal with that.
That's definitely your matrix, I think.
Yes. Yes.
It's
and introducing our guest, Eddie Chu. Eddie has been around in the industry for 15 years, more than that. I met you more.
Now it's getting on to 16 and 17.
Yeah. It's been a while.
seems like
And you've
forever.
been working as an animator, senior and lead animator in film, television, commercial, game cinematics. And now you're back sharing your knowledge through the Griffin Academy. And trying to push things out into the world, trying to raise that next generation of animators. And we thought we'd have a nice chat with you about your experiences since leaving Perth. And of course, Lindsay, who did a fair amount of roaming and working on large production, and you can both chat back and forth about that and discuss the nuances of growing out of Perth, which I've never done, but sure. Yes. We'll sort of leap into the questions. I've got multiple windows open here, so let's deal with that. And the multiple questions.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry?
Thanks for having me on, by the way.
No problem.
No, it's a privilege. It's good.
Yes, it's
our
great.
Privilege and our pleasure.
Cool. So
this is, just out of curiosity, this is being streamed onto YouTube, or is it separate?
It is streamed onto YouTube right now. So
gotcha. Through this Zoom conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I
just make sure your door's shut and no one's accidentally going to the loo or having a shower in the background or something.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So
children and animals, all that stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for the heads up.
No problem. Yeah. No picking of your nose or just like hacking coughs or anything like that. I'll try not to do any myself.
Yeah. Make sure you have all your spare change out of your pockets.
Yes. Is there going to be a Spider Ham film? No. See that. Yeah, that's going to be good. Okay. Let's see. We're going to start with the questions and get out there. It is 10:05. So we'll start with our number one question. Where were you trained? How did you get these skills? What was the leaping point for Eddie Chu as an animator?
I guess I was, for a lot of years, I was self-taught, but I did start with a lot of drawing. Mm-hmm. So I grew up reading a lot of comics, like Marvel, DC comics, and then I thought I visualized myself as a comic book artist. That was my plan. That was my goal. So I did lots of poses, lots of like cover style pin-up, and I think that helped me lead into animation, because animation is all about strong poses as well. But at the time, obviously, I wanted to draw. And then I went to Curtin University for multimedia design degree. and then that's where I discovered 3D and 3D animation. Before that, I didn't know what it was. I kind of knew, I saw cinematics, video games, but I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
It's just this kind of short film kind of medium, but I didn't know how to actually find it or ask what that is. And then that kind of just led me into being a generalist, and then a generalist led me into being an animator in 3D. And then for the longest time, I was self-taught. I did a few online courses, but a lot of it is just, doing your own short films, just loving what you do. So when you love what you do, you're gonna do whatever it takes to be good at your craft.
Yes.
So a lot of that was, just internet and personal shots and things like that.
Cool.
That's cool.
Okay, and so your original skill set was basically figure drawing and anime, that kind of thing, building up from there. Cool.
Yeah. I think that creates a good base, especially as an animator, because you rely on key poses. So key poses are pretty much like your golden poses that you create your animation around, and you want to create like strong silhouettes and strong staging. So every pose is clear. Like you can freeze on any frame, and it's gonna tell you exactly what that character is feeling, what they're what they're gonna do, where the energy came from, where it's gonna head, and it's dynamic and exciting at the same time.
Along those lines, did you have a copy of Drawing the Marvel Way?
Probably, yeah. I had a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I actually just copied comic books themselves, comic book artists.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think your main influences were early on?
As in which artists, or
Well, yeah, whatever.
a lot of it was Marvel comics. So I was a fan of Joe Madureira. I don't know if you guys read comics. He did a lot of X-Men. He was famous for X-Men, and then he started doing battle chases later on. He's got a very Japanese manga style, but he's combined with like American as well. So it's a combination. So early on, I used to just copy his stuff all the time. But yeah, a lot of like other comic book artists like Jim Lee, and I guess a lot of Marvel. But even
so
just reading, oh sorry.
No, go on.
I was just gonna say, just reading superhero stuff. Superhero comics were, I guess that's what I loved, reading that genre.
What did film and television, or say TV animation, or film and TV have as an influence on you? Was that major, or was that primarily starting off with comics and that was the launch pad?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Did you have any other influences apart from comics? What were the sort of movies and TV that you were influenced by, and was there anything else for that matter?
Gotcha. I was. What actually got me into 3D itself was cinematics, game cinematics, first of all, and then film after that. But in particular, I think when I discovered it was, do you know World of Warcraft? Around that time, Final Fantasy, there was like
how could we miss
game
it back
cinematics.
Yeah.
And like games started having movies, and for me that was like mind blowing. I was like, what the hell is this? I want to find out more. So that got me into learning 3D, and then from there I realized you could actually just branch off into like animation and different departments. If you get onto like bigger productions, I want you to specialize. And I just ran with animation. I loved it.
Okay. Cool.
And obviously a lot of film as well, like Star Wars and things like that.
So, starting 15 years ago, how do you think everything's changed since that time? I mean,
I guess
like technology-wise, expertise-wise, do you think the way movies or television or animation was made just a mere, say, 10 or 15 years ago is any different now to where it is? what do you think the rate of change has been? And I guess how often do you have to train and keep up with it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has, in terms of animation, animation is always it's always been a like a creative art form itself. Like if you go back to 2D animation, it relies on the 12 principles, um, and that in itself is going to hang around. Whereas things like what I've seen, like say watching Toy Story 1 to the next Toy Story, the rigs themselves, the actual 3D rigs, so that would have changed, which made the job for the animator a lot easier to do things like, I think they didn't have in the first one, I don't think they had IK setups for their feet, so you couldn't actually stick the feet. That's what I've heard.
They'd be early ones. It'd be early
Yeah,
ones.
like the first one. So you're using FK to do walk cycles, which is I don't know how they did it, but and so things like that has just helped the animator. But in terms of animation, I think you're sticking to things again like posing and the spacing and timing and all the principles always going to be there.
Take note, my students. 12 principles from a professional animator.
Oh, look, I mean, I found with my career, every 2 years, the whole industry seemed to have completely changed. But I came into it in the early 90s. So every 2 years, it seemed like there was a whole new generation of CPU.
Yeah. That would have been a crazy time. I guess now they're going into a lot of like Unreal Engine and VR stuff as well, which I personally don't have any experience with, but I think Unreal Engine is going into, it started with games, now they're going into filmmaking, right?
Yeah, it used to be that. Well, before E3 became big, it was SIGGRAPH. SIGGRAPH was the big thing. So it was movies driving a lot of the graphic, I think.
Yeah.
But it was weird because movies only made up like barely 5 or 10% of the graphics market. Most of it was just things like visualization for mining companies and engineers.
Oh, yeah.
Some of that stuff is so primitive to work with. It makes your head spin. But all that stuff was driven by the visual arts, even though, it was everything else. So do you feel that things have sort of remained consistent in the last 10 years? I mean, I know we've got the Unreal Engine now, which is actually, for me, as a stop motion animator, it's like, oh my God, it's great. I just set my lights up and it's like a stop motion set. I don't have to spend 15 steps doing anything.
Yeah, that's it.
But for you as an animator, things like motion capture, how has that really affected your career? And some of the other little methods where you see algorithmic or intervention like AIs, where I've got to do a bunch of little walk cycles or a bunch of little animations, and then a game engine sticks it all together. I don't have much control over it.
There's been a little bit of a back and forth between performance capture artists and animators in terms of how much they contribute to that. So has that impacted what you do in any level?
Yeah, I think it depends on the production and depends on the filmmaker, depends on the studio that you work for. Someone like, Weta Digital rely heavily on mocap. But then when it comes to a lot of creature animation, there's still a lot of, hand-keyed stuff that require an animator to just get in there and just animate a nice creature fighting another creature. Like something that's totally made up that you can't just capture with Andy Serkis. But
he's positioned himself well.
Yeah, he's great. I love his work. So it depends. There's a lot of production still, like Spider-Verse, which is just, it's 3D, but it was animated on 2s, so
it's hybrid. So
you're kind of like going backwards, in the sense that you're reverting back to what made animation cool, like TV animation, which was done on 2s. So so there is like back and forth, and depends where it is, depends where you go.
Yeah.
That's the fun part, you get to you have a decision, you can go wherever you want.
So along those lines, you knew you knew going into Spider-Verse that the post look of the film and how that how the animation changes were going to affect the film at the end.
So are you saying like just stylistically how?
Well, yeah.
Like,
In terms of the animation feel and the look, if you're in it, if you go in at knowing that you're animating on twos, obviously that makes some creative choices on how you deal with sort of action situations.
Yeah, definitely. I think they decided that early on, so that helped us kind of, I guess, plan like where you set your keys, the type of poses. Um, we actually animated on ones, but then you have tools that help you preview it, I guess, at on twos, and then from there you can just like kind of adjust the poses and the timing to make it work on twos, because it is, it is essentially taking out a lot of the frames. So yeah, it is just a matter of like a process as well. But definitely, yeah, it definitely is different to animating on ones and, and then twos. So.
Cool. Right.
So, I mean, production process with something like that. I mean, how much? I mean, you're doing the animation, and I guess you're getting animated characters to work with. But how much of the art direction and the design were you involved with? Were you just doing the animation as a specialist, or was it just kind of more? Did you have much input into that sort of thing?
Actually, yeah, we did. What I loved about that show was we got to design a lot of the look of our shot, I guess. There was, an animation supervisor to keep everything consistent, but in terms of creating like speed lines and just like lines and space and expressions, like and also like the smear frames, you're just, so you get to really design something that feels nice, and then you can present it to.
So were you doing a lot of your own layouts, or was that all blocked out for you? Like here's the storyboard, match that, and then you start off with that, and then off you go. Or did you have was there a little bit of spontaneity involved in that sort of process?
So it always usually starts off that way until, and a lot of productions go through this. Because they spend a lot of time and budget on layout and previews, but then towards the end the show starts to evolve.
It becomes
iterative. To grow, like maybe they don't like the third act, so a lot of times they'll just change it at the last minute, which requires animators to then do layout and previews to present that to animate. So it's very handy to know cameras and to know film language, things like that. It's very important.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so one of the questions that came up popped in from the people sending in questions. So Into the Spider-Verse, while critically acclaimed, had double the amount of animators than a typical studio. What were your feelings while you worked on the film, knowing it has gotten what it has gotten to in terms of scale, in terms of manpower?
I guess it doesn't even it doesn't really affect us as an animator, as an artist. You essentially want to get the film out the door on time. So you are really just a lot of times focused on your own sequence of shots, and you're hoping the next person sitting beside you is going to do the same and pull their weight, and you don't have to take their shot. But it's
sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So were you working like a little production team, like say 5 or 10 people?
Or were you pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so it's working a little team, and then there's a neighbouring team, and then another neighbouring team on the other side, and then the rest of it's kind of strange fog that there's stuff going on in the background. You're so busy with your little group, you have no idea what it is, and then
Yeah,
Did you ever
pretty
have
much. There's
situations where you
pockets.
walk into another part of the building and get startled at what you see? Like, who are these people? What are they doing? Oh, we do the
Yeah,
lighting. It's like,
definitely.
Uh,
oh no, we generate all the weather effects, or we do all the clothing. It's like, oh,
Yeah, you meet at beer o'clock or in the kitchen or
yeah.
something, and it's like, oh, what's up? What do you
I've
do?
only been on this job for a year and a half, and I've never
Yeah,
seen you before. Yeah. So I used to get that occasionally.
yeah, that's it's pretty standard actually.
so in terms of large studio animation, what's your day to day? So what does Eddie Chu do on a day in the studio?
I would, let's see, you'd kind of sign in and you'd grab a coffee because that's important, and you pretty much work,
The studio.
like 9:30 to 6:30. Um, a lot of times I would look at what I done the night before with fresh eyes. Uh, I don't really like to submit anything before I leave, just because end of the day you're exhausted, fatigued.
Mm.
So I probably made a lot of mistakes. So I'll come in and look at the notes I left myself, fix it up. And depending when dailies is, you just kind of prepare your shot for dailies. Um, and you go from there, get your feedback, and then just make your shot better and do it
So,
again.
so how frequent? I mean, I guess you take it. I assume you'd have your morning meetings with the very.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Linz, we've lost your audio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've lost your audio, Linz. Lindsay? No, he's still talking. Lindsay,
I think you can hear us.
we've lost your audio. Yeah. Yes.
Is he muted?
Technical.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, technical hits there.
Waving frantically.
So
Hey,
what
Lindsay.
yeah,
But it was my end.
No, no, that's cool. So what was your daily routine? I guess you'd be starting off the day, caffeineing up, checking what you did yesterday, and then I guess you go through that whole little routine where you're consulting or being briefed by your supervisors on updates and stuff. And then how often were dailies? Did you work in a production, so like a
They,
little production segment where you do say a week or two and then do a series of these things, or was it every day?
I know you do it every day, pretty
All
much.
right.
Yeah, like you'd also be working on up to 10 shots sometimes.
Mm.
So depending on what's coming in and what has to be done first. So you really got to time manage yourself as well. Um, and also if you need a kickoff for a new shot and you're wrapping one up, so it's always just like as you finish one comes in. So
Does your
and it,
sorry, how does your team dole out that work? So do you have shots just assigned to you, or is a person, hey, there's the jumping animation, so we always give that to that person, or this is the emotional pose, so we give it to that person.
yeah, is the jumping
Casting.
Yeah.
It depends on I guess the lead and the supervisor as well, if they know you well. Sometimes it's just divvied up in a team. So a lot of times as a team, you get a sequence. I don't know, you might get like a fight scene in a cave or something, and your team has to just work on that itself. And then your lead, if you know them well, they can dish out to whoever has strengths. A lot of times, if you request as well, you can always get the shot you want. Um, Again, it depends. I say that a lot. It depends, but it really does.
No,
Like
no.
it's always
It's
different.
negotiated. It's negotiated on the day.
Yeah, and some teams, some leads and suits, they just give you a shot. There is no negotiation. You just get your 10 shots and you just get it done on time.
Cool. Interesting. So that aspect hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you know when your work is up to standard?
I guess when it's time to show or when you think it's done, I guess you really, for myself, I'm going to say it again. It depends, right? So if you're going if you're going
it's all in
into,
context.
Yeah.
if you're going into blocking, right? Blocking is like a stage. Oh, let's start off with layout. Layout is where you're figuring out camera, timing, beats, poses, framing, of your shot. Nothing there has to be polished or cleaned up or perfect, but it has to give the client the information they need to go forward. And also you need to sign off of that layout and that camera before you start animating and blocking your poses and things like that. Because if that keeps changing, the camera keeps changing, if the shot keeps getting longer or getting shorter, there's no point really blocking out a shot until that's signed off. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time for yourself. It's back and forth. So, but if you are talking about when your shot is actually finished, polished at the end, how do you know? I would say I pretty much have my own checklist of if everything's crossed off and it feels good to me as well. A lot of times, you check your arcs, your spacing, whatever, or that feels great, but it also has to feel good. You have to watch it and it has to feel like right. If something doesn't feel, natural or nice about it, or then you have to like figure out what it is. If the timing's off, if a pose is off, or whatever. But over time, you just kind of learn to not just see a shot, but feel the animation. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no,
that's
very useful.
That sums up what most people have said over the years.
Yeah.
It's as much a
True.
Yeah, because like someone, for example, if the audience is watching it, an audience, a regular film goer, is not able to break down an animated shot, but they're gonna watch it and be like, "Oh, that didn't feel right. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't
something
feel
was
right."
off color.
Yeah, so if it doesn't feel right to them, it's our job, because we know we do it, for a living. That's our craft. We break it down and we, get in there, dissect it, and make it feel good, feel nice, and then present it again.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah. So I'm just thinking now. So you primarily deal with character animation. Have you ever dealt with visual effects animation? And if you have, what would you say would be the main difference between the two forms? Do you see them as two separate forms? It might be an even better question. Visual effects animation and character.
Actually, all my experiences in visual effects animation. Spider-Verse was probably that one, and Legends of the Guardians back in the day. It was the only two bit of features I worked on. The owl one.
Yeah.
The rest of my movies I worked on VFX, creature stuff, and things like at Weta, like Planet of the Apes and Hobbit. So that stuff I love. Yeah. So doing something like Spider-Verse was something different for me, but I wanted that change, that challenge as well.
Yeah.
You're kind of looking for it as an artist.
Okay. So did you find it particularly challenging? Were there any new skills you had to pick up for character animation? Any nuances that you never came across before?
I think so. Going into from VFX to Spider-Verse, I had to really focus on things like posing. That relied a lot on like comic books, Spider-Man poses. I'm a big Spider-Man fan.
Yeah,
so that was easy. That was fine.
It was more like instantly.
It was more like just training myself again to use smear frames and design action lines and things like that to really make a shot, pop. And like, I'm guessing you've seen the movie, like there's a certain distinct style to it, right? There's a nice blend of comic book and 2D and 3D. Like there's a bunch of stuff in there.
It was a breath of fresh air when it came out.
Yeah, exactly.
Very strange coming from the Marvel comic universe, because they're usually quite the opposite. They're very conservative in just about every aspect of production. And then suddenly the Spider-Verse pops out. It's like, holy moly, it's out there.
Came at the right time as well.
It did. And And that also plays a big part in I guess, our careers. Right time, right place, I think. It's, oops, excuse me. No mirror. Messing up my hair here.
Yeah.
So apart from, I mean, when you're working on something internally, it's very easy to get lost in it, I guess, lost in all the details. How often do you find that once you've sunk all that time and effort and heart and soul into something, and then you finally see it on the big screen in an audience, how often do you feel like, oh, I thought I was doing this, but apparently I was making that? How often do you find your expectations and your internal experiences matches what finally pops out at the end?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Something I've always
It
found
depends.
utterly nerve-wracking.
Yeah, again, like it depends on the production of if it was hell or if it was fun as well. Because
Not
sometimes
always.
like I can't even watch my shot for a while. You know, sometimes it was just like it's too associated with like I don't know, too many iterations or changes or whatever. But
You
sometimes
can't
it's
see
fun.
it
I
anymore,
can't wait
or
to
it's full of
finish,
errors. Yeah.
you know. But it is very rewarding. Like, you know, I don't want to sound spoiled or anything, but it is definitely nice to see people enjoy your work as well.
Mm.
Um, you know, when people say they love Spider Verse, you know, everyone's copying it. And just, you know, all the other movies, like even I love watching Planet of the Apes. I thought that was great, and I'm so
Mm.
happy I worked on it.
Really
Uh,
enjoyed that, actually.
It's
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
They're good updates.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They look amazing as well.
Mm.
Things like I worked on Gravity, and
Oh, really?
yeah,
Mm.
and you know, I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy the process. It was very, very tough, but
Was it?
I think the
Did it
movie
feel
came out a few years
disjointed, like
later.
you were just working on little parts and you didn't know what it was going to do until they all got put together by someone else
Pretty
somewhere else?
much, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it felt like that while working on it.
Mm.
But in the end, like it was a brilliant movie. When I watched it,
Mm.
I was like, holy crap! You know, I was so lucky to work on it and meet the director and things like that. So
Do you find sometimes that when it all does come together well, you look at your work and the context that it's in, and you think, how on earth did I do that? And did
yeah,
we all do this? Because often, one of the experiences we often found, I mean, I worked on films like The Matrix and Happy Feet, and there were two quite different experiences, but there was one thing that they did have in common. It's like, shit, how did we do that? It
yeah,
seemed
yeah.
like everyone put their work together, and then what came out was bigger than
I
all of it
know.
put together. The sum of its parts was far greater than its components or the work that went into it. So on the one hand, you're looking at your individual shots and thinking, "Oh my god, I can't believe that got through." And on the other hand, you're thinking, "Shit, what the hell?" So, do you find is that one of the prime motivations of why you get into this thing, or is it? I
I
mean, in
think
a
that's
sense,
one of
it's a
them.
very indirect performance that we're doing here. We're kind of performing to an audience, but it's so indirect, it's so contrived, and so roundabout. I
Yeah,
guess.
like if you're able to step back and you know see it from like the client, the director's point of view, even
Mm.
like the animation supervisor's perspective, like just looking at it as a whole,
Mm.
then you can better appreciate what you're going through. You know why there's changes, why there's updates, rather than being stuck just in your one shot. Um, you know, and a lot of artists get, I guess, a little precious about that. But that comes with experience. You learn to just kind of detach in a sense and just step back and see it as a whole.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's a filmmaking process, um, and that's all part of it,
Mm.
which I
So
appreciate a lot more now.
yeah. So I guess with the Spider Verse, you're making stuff jump off the screen quite deliberately. But have you ever done work where you've deliberately gone out to make it as invisible and innocuous as possible? So that is, look, I'm just making a thing, be it a bit of background or
Yeah,
fixing a
yeah.
hole in the ceiling or
Oh yeah,
something as mundane as that. And my whole job is to make sure that no one ever knew I was even here. So how often do you come across that in your animation career?
oh plenty. Yeah, you
Yeah.
like earlier on in your career as well. You start off with
Mm.
I don't know animating or like small things like I don't know leaves or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of times your shots don't even make it into film as well. You can take it to a certain distance, and then it just doesn't fit, in the edit. So that's just as bad as doing something that's visible.
Yeah.
So
how
that's
important do you
part
think
of.
it is? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's part of just getting your experience and getting your foot in the door, and
Right. So how important do you think it is for animators to understand how everything fits together? That is, not everything's a glamorous money shot, but I guess 90% of it actually is the stuff you don't even realize is there. And I think, do you feel that's something that gets mentioned a lot in training or in animation books?
It doesn't. I mean, that is a reality. That is, every animator, whatever level you are, there's going to be shots that you just have to do that's not glamorous. That's not the money shot, but it's part of the movie, right? And that's what you sign on to do.
I guess it's a bit like people that work in games. We have students that always think, oh yeah, I've got swords and shields. And then the question comes up, oh, well, what about the mugs, jugs, tables, chairs, carpets, coat hangers,
the hat overlap or something,
the 4,000 other items that you have to make that world look even vaguely convincing, let alone anything else. And there's all the way through.
So
I don't like listening to things like that.
So you're working in animation and VFX. Are you also doing any of the other roles like lighting or modeling or rigging or any of that?
Not so much. When you work on bigger productions, you tend to specialize a lot. I guess in animation, you kind of branch out into a lot of camera stuff, a lot of previews, a lot of layouts. So like I said earlier, it really helps if you understand film language, or if you're a fan of film. That carries over into knowing how to make a camera interesting, make a shot hook up to the next shot, things like that. They all, because a lot of times you get a note saying, just make it cool. So it's like, all right, well,
how does a banana dance?
I have ideas, so. And then I like that though. I like that.
Yeah.
Because I have an idea of what I think is cool, so I get a chance to play with that and present it. And if it makes it in, then hey, great.
I was just thinking, Tanya, it's not unlike how we do Wham Bam. So Wham Bam, if you're familiar with it, is a 48-hour sort of animation jam, like a 48-hour game jam, where on the Friday night, our teams turn up. They get sometimes randomly sorted, sometimes they're an existing team, and they pick some words out of a hat. And the words will be a color, music, and a mood. And you've got 48 hours to make something with those three elements.
Yeah, right.
And it actually turns out to be a really good exercise, because suddenly everyone starts producing. Never think of in a million years. I think it's a great little competition, because I think it does exactly what we're doing here. It's like, oh, the client came back and they wanted to cry more. And it's like, it's just a picture of a house. How do I make a house cry more without animating it or something? And it's all in your layout, where you put your cameras and your colors and all that. And you have to kind of, okay, that's what they want to convey.
Yeah.
And here's the things I'm going to use to work with it. It's like that Apollo 13 thing, when they have to kind of build an air scrubber out of bits and pieces. And that's pretty much what you're doing.
I think that's where the games folk are just starting to tap into that. Cinematics in games has been big for a while, but like in-game stuff, people are starting to move the camera around a little bit. And game players are starting to see a more cinematic universe out there, rather than just the straight behind the character view or whatever it is.
I've been hired once or twice to work with a game, and where it's like, oh, you did layouts and movies, did you? Great. Well, here we go. And like, oh, cool. Get ready for the cameras and setups. And then they say, here's the camera. You stick it on the player's head.
Yeah.
Job done. See ya. Bye. It's like, okay, I'll just go off and go into a corner and quietly cry myself to sleep. And it's like, oh, geez, don't I feel redundant? Like, all that years and years and years of training all about for? So how often do you come across those sort of situations where you suddenly find you walk into something and then without you knowing it, the whole context of something has changed? This has happened to me many times in my career.
Yeah, it happens towards a lot of times when there's towards the end of production. Again, when like there's a lot of last minute changes and suddenly they want clients want like sequences created on the fly, so you just really have to like start pumping out shots and
we forgot the fourth wheel. Shit.
So that's usually where it happens. In the beginning, it's more like just follow previews and layouts and things like that. So.
And then as it comes together, suddenly people realize they've made a Frankenstein's monster.
Sorry, I let my cat out.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
I'll manage my pandemic non-haircut.
I think your cable on your headphones are buzzing a little too, Linz.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Just wiggle a little. Just a slight buzz. I can hear it in the background. But that just could be me, like, in my...
Your circuits are starting to fry there, Tanya.
True.
You have to go back to your cyberneticist.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay, so next question. 10 years down the track, how is an animator working? How do you think 10 years time, the day-to-day of an animator, what's going to be going on there?
Oh, that's I guess
I'll get my crystal ball.
See into the future, Eddie.
Speculate wildly, my friend.
Yes.
Well, it's funny you asked that. I guess with the whole pandemic going on, that's already changing the landscape, in my opinion. We're proving that we can work from home, and I think
that's a mixed bag.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot more animated, movies and TV shows coming out from remote work. I don't know, maybe film studios might see that animators are pretty important as well. When it goes into making films going forward.
There's been an uptake of AI driven tools within the industry as well. So are you seeing them starting to come through?
I've seen a couple of things like I guess it's almost like motion capture stuff, but it's more I don't know, say stuff like based on sound, facial shapes based on sound, things like that. It's still very, I guess, mechanical. You're still going to need like a human touch. You still, a lot of shots are going to require a lot of heart, which machines can't really replicate.
One of the best descriptions of AIs I heard came from the gaming world, and they all described AIs as bicycles, where you pick up this thing and it does something for you and you realize you've been a pedestrian all your life and, oh man, I've got a bicycle. I'm still driving it, but it makes my life a lot simpler. So with things like, say, what's an example? 3D rigging, for example. You've got a character with a rig and suddenly you see someone's put all these funky controls in there. So when I put my dinosaur foot down, it splays the toes a little bit. How much of that do you think should be AI? Because I've seen a few people grumble about the fact that, well, the new Jurassic Park has these fantastic rigs, but it looks a bit, I'm thinking like the animation on the old ones where they had to do everything by hand. It looked a bit, I don't know, better? What's the word I'm looking for? Genuine? Sincere? I mean, so you're getting into that airy, I want my house to be happy or my banana to dance or something. So how much of that do you think gets in the way? Because I often find that with software, it does all this amazing stuff, but it leads you down the garden path and then abandons you just before you're about to get to the end. You still have to go and rip it all to pieces and start again.
It's nice when visual effects are still relying on a lot of practical like blending of, like you use a Jurassic Park example, like a foot, hitting the mud. It's nice when they use like a prop to smash the mud and create the mud to spread, but then you animate a dinosaur hitting that mud on top of that.
So you're matching a real life reference quite directly, and that I think is where your best visual effects come from. Exactly. It's still grounded, but fantastic. Well, special. They're still special.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So with things like VR, for example, how do you see that sort of thing? Because I must say I'm kind of, ooh, this sounds really cool, and it looks very exciting. But it's like, oh god, I'm going to have to go back to bloody grade school again just to keep up with it.
I actually have no experience with VR.
Well, we've seen some people do. We had a Wanimate get together. Well, I think I Am Mother had a fantastic thing where one of the local Perth visual effects guys essentially wrote a VR set layout system where you'd stick the helmet on and you're in the set, and you could rearrange stuff and organize your shots, and they'd basically build it that way. And it was like stepping onto a real set and just waving your arms around and actually positioning stuff as you might have done in an old Hollywood film.
Yeah.
And apart from getting over the fright of working out how it all works, it turned out to be a really intuitive way to kind of work. And I was thinking, if you've got a game engine, you've got a set, and you've got characters that a fair bit of rigging on them and stuff like that, you could essentially go to the Jetsons or go to the Simpsons, walk inside the house and think, right.
Yeah.
Back out again and pick out
how an animator kind of fits in with that. Again, I have no experience with VR, but in that scenario, they would require an animator, right? To animate.
Well, you'd need a filmmaker and a layout artist and an animator and all, and possibly even some lighting. You might even have a team of people in there. So, actually, I guess the biggest difference from when I was working full-time in the career now is the rise of production software, like things like Shotgun. So how much of your life revolves around those things?
I mean, they're pretty handy. We use Shotgun. Like, Shotgun is pretty standard. They're useful. I'm pretty indifferent, honestly, with it.
So is there still a lot of people talking in corridors and arm waving and emails flying in all directions, or is it all done mediated via these pieces of software closely?
It's both. Like we'll have clients, we talk to the satellite. We have messenger apps where you just talk to different artists, in different parts of the building. If you need to reach another department, you just email or message.
Sneakernet. Meet them in person, exchange of pheromones, that sort of thing.
If they're in the same city.
It's amazing what a difference that makes, actually.
It's amazing just now, like being able to see full rendered shots and things like that coming through things like Zoom calls and people are able to share entire layouts and stuff like that set up. It's a little bit laggy, and of course the frame rate drops a little bit, especially from Australia because our internet sucks. But
we have the world's greatest internet, given to us by the world's greatest economic managers. What have I said?
Okay. So we're getting towards the end of the hour. Do you have any advice for an up-and-coming Perth animator or anyone coming? What's the small amount of advice you'd give them stepping out into industry?
I can tell you what I did, but also what I tell everyone else and all my students. It's the same thing as well. It really is. It comes down to hard work. I worked my butt off to get here because I'm from Port Hedland. Port Hedland is like red dirt. Grew up around Spinifex.
We know it well.
So, and I knew that I wanted to get into film and work overseas. So I had a plan to just keep learning, like just pretty much eat up every resource I could. Work on a lot of personal shots. Work on your demo reel. Demo reels what gets you jobs in animation, and also while working on your demo reels and your personal shots, just get the experience where you can. I would be getting freelance jobs while working full time on cinematics, commercials, whatever, just to build up my resume, just to get the next shot that looked nicer than the last one and bump one out on my demo reel, and just keep trying to get your demo reel, like the quality, just keep Kind
So
of
it's an ongoing thing that you're perpetually adding and dropping from,
pretty
basically
much, yeah.
adding and removing from.
Yeah. I mean, I still do it now, but you're gonna find that like you keep doing that, and you're gonna get a shot or two as you go, which are gonna get you jobs for a while.
Mm.
Um, they're like, I guess, the money shots in the demo reel. So even again, personal shots, you learn so much from doing short films
Yeah.
and working on your own, shots at home or collaborating with other animators. Even like if you can find a mentor to an online course, it's so easy now online. You guys have it easy. We we didn't have like online schools
Oh God! Look,
back in
when
the
I started
day.
my career, there wasn't anything. I felt like I was on the moon, and it wasn't until I did a course
Yeah.
at Swinburne. I spent 4.5 years of my life making a silly little Lego film called The Magic Portal in the late '80s, and it wasn't. I spent 4.5 years on that whilst doing a
Well, that's long.
regular film and TV degree at Curtin,
Yeah,
because I figured, oh, film and TV, I
yeah,
better get a regular job in the film industry, otherwise no one's going to believe an animator. And it turned out to be the other way around in the end. But when I finally got to Swinburne, which was a small little college in Victoria, which at the time had a very great reputation for animation, I discovered there were 7 other students in the room with me. Oh my God, I finally met my own. For the first 5 years, 6, if you include hobbying around, doing the hobbies in high school, it felt like I was the only human on the planet doing this stuff. There was no internet. You couldn't find anything other than the usual dumb cartoons and stuff like that. It was all kids' cartoons like Warner Brothers from the 50s and 60s, and smattering of 80s. Or it was the movies, and there was nothing else. There was no games animation. I mean, in fact, there were no games pretty much. It was like the Commodore 64 had just arrived. So for me,
can I ask you then what kept you like going and motivated to keep doing that? If you
one of
thought you're the only one doing
okay, so the thing that got me going was I originally started off thinking I was going to be a science fiction writer. And then I realized, oh no, it's actually comics. So my comics that I really got into were, I guess, the 70s Marvel and DC. But it was also 2000 AD was my big influence, a bit punk, right? So my heroes came from half the British comic scene, like Mike McMahon and a whole ton of those guys. And I also picked up, because you were finding whatever you could glean from the world.
Yeah.
Suddenly I found myself reading as much old comic stuff like Winsor McKay and Harvey Kurtzman and the classic, well, I guess the golden era, that crowd, as much as I was the new stuff. And same with movies. You'd come across a movie and it would be something as huge as The Seven Samurai, and no one in my entire school, virtually no one in my entire family, and definitely no one in my neighborhood had ever even heard or even conceived of it. So I sit down in a little dark room with this black and white 3x4 mono scratchy film. I can hardly read the subtitles. It's all crappy scratches. And then suddenly 3 hours later, where did that come from? It's an amazing thing. So it felt like I was on a lunar landscape discovering this stuff. So it felt really quite remote. And then when I finally got to Melbourne and Sydney, oh my God, it's everywhere. And it's kind of humdrum by comparison because it was so special and magical. That's what kept me going. I used to hate actually animating, but it was the result at the end that kept me going for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And then the result always paid off. And that was what it was that performance thing. Like, I really want to get inside that Lego set and see what they think in there.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And that's what people responded to.
Yeah,
and that's what drove me all the time. And then when 3D turned up, it's like, oh, great. Someone's taken all the drudgery out of stop motion. Well, briefly. And then off it went from there. True. It's been progressive steps like that all the way through.
Yeah. So how's the animation industry now, film industry in WA?
It's definitely picking up.
Well, we're pretty
a couple
healthy.
of movies get made. Yeah, we're quite healthy, I think.
Yeah.
In fact, I think if the state government plays its cards right, I think with the COVID-19 thing, they could actually promote themselves as a safe haven for location filming at the very least.
We got the advantage of the isolation that we've already been dealing with.
You can shoot. Yeah. You can shoot stuff with deserts. You can shoot stuff with forests. You can shoot stuff with coastlines. You can shoot stuff with all kinds of different things, and relatively clean atmosphere. relatively.
Yeah.
And so when I was training people in China, they were always talking about Australia. One of its attributes was, oh yeah, go down there for the clean air, nothing else. I guess the bushfires really put a dent in that. So we might, I should imagine, apart from COVID, the other thing that really gave us a king hit was actually the bushfires. It did a lot of damage to us, a lot of damage. And there's a whole bunch, I mean, the arts at the moment federally is just being delegated to, abolished effectively, and it's now part of roadworks. And so there's a whole strata of, I guess you could say, upper management that has absolutely no freaking clue what's about. So that's concerning. And if we're going to hold an economy up that's going to kind of grow out of mining and coal and stuff like that, then we really have to start developing this stuff in a big way.
Yeah.
Because it's going to, you know, otherwise we're going to be some old 18th century, 19th century colonial outpost that, oh, we ran out of rocks to sell in the quarry. Yeah. All this to kind of, why would anyone bother with that?
And well, they're saying that the future of employment is creative industries from this point on, really.
So I'm sure people are looking at AIs anxiously, but yeah, I think you're right. And the thing about AIs is that it allows a team of 10 people to pull off the effect of 50 people.
Yeah.
If you've got a machine that's helping you, or if you've got software tools like, say, the Unreal Engine that says, well, you could make Iron Man with 5,000 people, or you could have 50 people in a small outfit, and they've got the same access to the same tools and the same expertise and the same output, then it's all going to boil down to, well, how good can they express themselves? It doesn't matter that it's a bit ratty around the edges. It's how genuine it feels and how sincere it feels. That's really going to make the difference. And so in spite of all the YouTubes and social media stuff, it's going to be that, your own expression and what you've got to say, contribute, which is really going to set the scene for the future. And I think that's where the next big films will come from. It's the next big trends. It's going to be from people being, I guess, sincere and genuine about themselves. So really, when I look at making shots interesting, I don't think, oh, I'm going to make my shot interesting. I'm thinking, what am I trying to say? Or rather, what are we trying to say with this film? And what do we want to have that statement say affect an audience, even if I don't know who that audience is going to be or what the circumstances are.
Cool.
That's how I see it. And I think that's the important, you can't separate your expressiveness and what you're trying to say with, I guess, your economic activity, because essentially your economic activity is a measure of what we're all doing. It's not a thing unto itself, even though a lot of people feel it that way. Sorry, I'm getting a bit philosophical there.
No, that's fine. It's.
Oh no! What have I done?
Okay, so
I'll be trolled and doxed. Yeah.
Just some final quick-fire questions, and
yes,
and we'll let you plug what you've been going on with at the moment. So, just quick-fire questions: coffee or Coke? You've already answered that one.
Coffee. No sugar.
All right. Background music or silence?
Music.
And would it be say Brian Eno or Ian Moss? Shall we say? I'm showing my age here.
Wow, Vince.
It varies. Everything.
Everything. Yeah, everything.
2D or 3D?
That's a
3D.
3D. Cool.
2.5D.
Tablet or paper?
Tablet.
Okay.
Okay. Well, tell us about what you're doing now, and explain what Eddie's into.
Sure. Well, I guess I founded and I teach an online school called Perth Animation Academy. So we have a YouTube channel. We have online courses. The courses pretty much cover what I talked about today, which is things like making shots interesting, film language. It's not just about animation. Animation is, it's important, but it's not everything. Now, when you're working in film, you have to understand how to blend film and animation together. I think that's where the real skill is, and that's where I try to help animators create those shots and learn that process to put onto the demo reels to find work, which is super important.
Your film language, which frames your animation.
Yeah, things like just being able to tell a story in an interesting way, in a entertaining and appealing way, without a shot feeling like just a student exercise, like a walk cycle. You can make something super interesting. It doesn't have to be just showing weight in an animation. You can show that the character has personality, behavior, thought process, with a really fun camera. And there's many ways to do it.
Yeah. Cool. An infinity of ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Eddie.
It's been great.
And taking time out of your evening after probably a hard day animating to.
Oh yeah, it's all good. This was fun. Thanks for having me on.
No
Had
problem.
A great time.
It's great. It's been good. And it's been 15 years since we've seen each other, like at the FTI, like years ago. So
yeah, and it's fun to. It's nice to hear an Aussie accent talk about animation.
Oh yeah, true.
Oh God, I remember. I did my first 15 years in the biz, and I felt like I'd been there forever. And then eventually I had to kind of change careers because of a pacemaker and a heart condition, which was really sucky. So that's why I'm here at the moment, being a tape lecturer and a bit of an odds bod, really. Yeah, I remember my 15 years felt like a lifetime. I couldn't even remember the beginning of it. It was so long ago in the Paleolithic. And how do you feel about the next 15 years? I guess would be my concluding question.
The next 15, let's see. Like I enjoy working in movies, and also now I'm focused on building the animation school. Like I feel like I have something to offer and something that's different to other schools as well. And
I like that. I like that your online stuff complements what we teach as well. So
and I like the idea that you're remembering film language, because a lot of that will change your actual animation on a shot-by-shot basis in quite a profound way.
And we have a student showcase coming out, hoping in July sometime. So want to be able to show everyone what we're doing. It's some pretty awesome stuff. There's some talented animators out there.
There's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of potential skills and talent to develop.
Just need more animators, to reach out to me from Perth or WA or Australia. No one ever does from that side of the world.
Oh, well, maybe that's what Wanimate's key mission this year is, Tanya.
Just getting people to reach out and connect across the world. Well, that's, the internet, and connecting to other animators is one of those big things that we as Wanimate have been, trying to push, like Lindsay and you were saying, Eddie, the whole thing of isolation for animators, where we're by ourselves, we don't connect that often individually, even within studios, work in small teams, and it's that connecting with other people, the small amount of competition that we have between each other, that creates new and interesting and exciting things going forward. So
well, like everyone has LinkedIn now. There's no excuse. LinkedIn is a powerful website or app, or is for networking. Just use it. Internet, use it.
Yes. Well,
no excuse anymore.
It was pretty dry when it first came out, but it's definitely not the social thing of Facebook. But it has a purpose for business and getting yourself out there. So
yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much, Eddie, again. And
thank you, Eddie. It's been a very illuminating and informative session.
Yes.
It's been fun. Thank you for the chat.
We will kidnap and Shanghai people and send them to you forthwith.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, well.
Big day to everyone on YouTube as well.
True.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll stop the stream shortly. It should be available to review if you want to go through and take notes from Annie and come back. Should be available.
Reach out as well. Just feel free to find me on LinkedIn or email or our website. So
sounds good.
Go ahead. I'm harmless.
Nice. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Eddie. Catch you later.
Yes.
Now, how do we turn this thing off?
I've just got to turn the stream. Okay. See you later.
There we go. See you around.
Okay. Thanks, Linz. It's done. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.